This podcast is a quest for well-being, a quest for a meaningful life through the exploration of fundamental truth. Enlightening ideas, insights on physical, mental, and spiritual health. The inspiration is love. The aspiration is to awaken new ways of thinking that can lead us to a new way of being well. Welcome to Body, Mind, and Soul Healing Conversations.
I deeply believe with perseverance, compassion, and creativity, there is always a path to healing, no matter how complicated or hopeless your situation might feel. Valeria Teles interviews Scott D Martyr, the author of 5 Steps to Tame the Overwhelmed Mind, Unclutter Your Emotional World. Scott D Martyr, MD, is a board-certified psychiatrist who graduated Duke University for his undergraduate education and received his medical degree from University of Rochester, New York. After medical school, he completed his internship in psychiatry at Naval Hospital-Portsmouth, Virginia, and continued his postgraduate training in psychiatry at Naval Hospital-San Diego, California. He spent 7 years in the U.S. Navy, where he provided patient care in an outpatient clinic, consultation liaison service, and detention facility, as well as teaching psychiatry to the family practice residents. He was awarded the 2nd annual Pfizer Psychiatry Resident of the Year and later received a U.S. Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal for meritorious service. He has been in private practice since 2002, which includes individual group therapy, hypnotherapy, psychopharmacology, and holistic modalities. Dr. Martyr's book, 5 Steps to Tame the Overwhelmed Mind, offers a unique emotional map for overcoming old patterns. The theory behind the 5 steps is a visual method to not only show you how you get overwhelmed, but more importantly, teach you the way out of overwhelm and into emotional freedom. Meet Scott at scottmartyr.com. Here is the interview with Scott D Martyr.
In your own words, who is Dr. Scott D Martyr?
Okay, that's a good question. Well, I can answer it in 2 ways. On an intellectual level, probably just tell you I'm a recovering psychiatrist, meaning that I am a psychiatrist who is trained in the regular fashion, but I've had to evolve my own way of doing things kind of as time has gone on. I'd also say I'm a truth seeker, a creative healer, an artist, a writer. But I guess the other way I would answer that question is maybe who is Scott Martyr really? And, I probably would answer that in a different way because the truth is I would say I'm a mystery. I mean, I think, like all of us, we never really know for sure who we are because with every new discovery, we become, kind of a different entity. And there's always going to be new things to conquer. And, and I often wonder if who we really are has nothing to do with the name at all. It's actually the exact opposite,
Right.
And maybe to truly be, you have to be nobody with a name. But for now, this is what I have. So we'll go with it.
And it sounds very enlightening to me and clear when you say that the mystery of all, of who we are, that resonates true to me. And then when you said earlier, being a true seeker. So I'm wondering at that level, what are you seeking?
I guess I would say it in one or a couple ways. The true self or the real self would be what I'm seeking. And, and certainly I think along with that is, I think all of us are trying to figure out how to find our way home or how to find out who we really are or try to get through some education of the soul while we're here. And And I guess there's a lot of ideas about how to do that. And so I think ultimately that's what we're trying to do.
Right.
And we just have different ways of doing it, different routes, different speeds, but we're all going to get there. And so I think truth is a good path sometimes because it will get you closer to your goal of the real self. If you can kind of negate what's unreal or what's an illusion or what's a distraction, and then you can get closer to who you really are.
Have you found a clear path to finding your true self?
I think for now I have. I'm certainly open to, a different direction. Life really can change. Even the events this last year, I think, are changing how people are evolving and what they think they need to do. And I think this last year for me has been about going inside more and getting more clear about what that direction is and whether I need to, recalibrate in a different way or what maybe I'm actually doing the right things. I feel like most days I feel like I'm on a good path. Everyone has a challenging day where you think, maybe I'm just not doing the right thing or something like that. But it usually is more of a lesson than anything else, not about a mistake or anything.
Everything's a path from my experience. It has been.
Yes, very true.
So expectations about life. At this time, what do you want from life?
Well, I feel like as time goes on, I realize I need less, which is kind of interesting because I think there was a time my expectations were, well, you need to develop your reputation or you need to make a certain amount of money or have a certain kind of family. And now it's all about simplicity. It's really about realizing that you actually need very little. What I think you do need is time and space, freedom to kind of do the things you love, freedom to be who you really are, and really embracing time. We all have limited time, and I think we just have to make the best use of it. You can't do everything, so you have to really put your energy in what you feel is most useful for you and others.
I agree. I love the way you say that. Yeah, doing for everyone, trying to find that way of living that's beneficial to all of us. That really sounds like wisdom to me. And that is my next question. How do you define wisdom?
Oh, okay. Well, that's a great question as well. I certainly feel that I wrote a lot about that in the book, and I, on an intellectual level, once again, it's kind of about knowledge within the mind, and I think as time goes on, I realize that has its limitations, and wisdom of the heart is really more valuable, it seems, as time goes on. I feel like that will get you closer to the truth. But certainly I'm very open to learning about wisdom in all ways. What I would say for me is it's really about, negating the unreal, really finding out what's not real or what's not useful, and really focusing more on, what really helps me kind of evolve and become a truer self. And, the word wisdom is, I think it can change over time. It could be subjective, and it's true. All of us can identify with certain forms of wisdom, but I also feel that that can change as well over what really is the best use of what we're learning as our life goes on.
When you say finding out what's real, that's an interesting phrase. I'm wondering if for each one of us, everything, the idea of reality, it's different. Of what it's real, it's different. Would you say so?
I believe so. I can only talk from
Right.
from what my own life so far, and I realized the things that I thought were important or real were a lot of times illusions. Certainly things change over time, and the things that you thought were so important that you had to get, or you realize it's just an illusion. And but I think it works that way somewhat for everyone. I don't think anyone is born, with this wisdom. Sometimes you just have to discover it for yourself, after a journey through your own wilderness, which no one can, take for you or spare you. And the wisdom really comes usually later on, and that's the point of view from which you come to see the world at last. And sometimes that doesn't happen for some people till much later in life. Sometimes it doesn't happen at all in this life. I notice some young people have a lot of wisdom that I'm amazed by, because when I was at their age, I was very unconscious of so many things, and they're very evolved. So but yeah, I think it's just about we have to discover it for ourselves, and it can be painful, but it can be really, really valuable.
I love the way you talk about the wisdom of the heart. You just mentioned that. And that makes me think about what's real. That's real to me. What do you think is the purpose of the human experience, Scott?
I love that question. I think it's such a great question. And I would say, just to start off, just so we're clear, that I was not present at the conference when God made, this plan for the life purpose. So I can't say what was really said in that meeting. Yeah. But I think I mentioned before, I mean, I do believe it's about education of the soul. I think we're trying to find the truth in our own way, and we're trying to, I guess some people would say they're trying to reach happiness, which I think is good, but I don't know if that actually gets us to the purpose of life sometimes, although some would say that is the purpose of life, I notice. So there's a difference of opinion on that. I think for me, to even want to seek to know the significance of life is pretty good. The fact that you even want to know that is pretty remarkable. So I'm not even sure you have to figure out the answer, for sure. But I think we all have to figure out our own path and what we're supposed to be doing with our life. And, I think for me, I just try my best to, listen to the inner voice, and just, rely on entirely on that inner knowing, whatever clarity you get, your clarity of thoughts, your purity of motive, integrity of action. And I know that sounds so easy, but it really isn't. I think for years I struggled with that. I didn't know how to get grounded for quite a few years. And then when I finally figured it out, I understood that if you're in a calm and compassionate place, you actually can hear the voice, the inner voice, so much better. And so I feel like people would like to learn about that, and certainly I try to share that as much as I can, especially in this past year when I think everyone is very anxious and overwhelmed and trying to figure out their purpose. And I think that's like the worst time to figure it out because your emotions are going to distort all your thoughts. And I really try to tell people to be patient, with this time period, because we're just in a time of chaos right now. And until things can really settle down, it's just important not to make any big decisions, not try to figure out your life plan, just really take care of yourself and try to get grounded, in your, by having a balanced lifestyle and maybe journal, but just not put pressure on yourself to figure out your purpose right away.
Yeah, great answer. I love the way you started that, answering that question. Even by asking the question, it says a lot. What is the purpose of my life? That means we're becoming more conscious about being here, that we are here in the human body, and there's more to it than just doing the things we do, and striving to have a house, a car, family. So, yes, yeah.
And I think you should do those things. That's important. You need to
Of
cover
course.
those bases, because I think
Yes.
after you get to them, you'll realize there's actually more to the story about what would truly get you to a sense of purpose. Yeah.
When you say balance, do you connect balance with healing?
Definitely. Anything that is used to make us whole, which I think we're ideally after. I think it's not easy to do, but yeah, I think what I mean by that is taking care of yourself in a way where you really make some good lifestyle choices as part of your daily life. I mean, I so often hear that people are so busy working their jobs that they can't even have a meal that is more than 5 minutes. And so, yeah, I will talk about that for probably the rest of my life, that your body's not going to heal until you treat it with respect and give it a sense that it's important and that you need to fill it with good energy, whether it be by food, exercise, solitude, nature, not just make your life about being in front of a computer. I feel like that's really putting people in a negative spiral, because it just takes away from their body and who they really are.
That's interesting. I call that self-love, practices of self-love.
Yeah, no, it's a great term.
Yeah, some people, they call it self-care. You call it balance. Just
I didn't actually know I called it anything.
Right.
I called it lifestyle interventions, and that's probably how I phrase it usually. But I think self-care is also pretty good, and self-love.
Kind of makes sense, right? We are in the body, so it makes sense to observe the body, see how it works. We don't need anyone actually to teach us how the body works. It's so wise. And then pay attention and then go by that. The feelings, how we feel after eating something, after exercise. But as so many people say, common sense is not that common. And most of us don't follow that rule.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of reasons I hear over the years.
Right.
And they're very creative. But,
yes, the excuses, right?
That's okay.
So what are some of the greatest misconceptions about emotional health, Scott?
Well, I would say a big one I talk about in the book is that we all have emotions within ourselves, and I think this idea that somehow the outside world is supposed to help us feel better, either by people or medicine or people agreeing with us or doing what we want. I think the idea I try to get across in the book is that we're kind of responsible for taking care of our own emotions, and I realize that's not necessarily the way people usually think about it, because they kind of feel like they have a right to be who they are, and why should they have to change? So I do talk about that quite a bit in my book, that if you're overwhelmed with certain emotions, or you're trying to get out of certain habits of thinking that are negative, only you're going to be the one that's going to be able to get yourself out of the ditch. It's really no one else's job, not even your spouse's. And I know that can be shocking to people. Yeah. It's because I don't even think people know how to do that anyway. I mean, that's the thing. Even if you tell them that this is what you're supposed to do, they have no idea what you're talking about. So, right. But the book explains that. It explains how you're supposed to take care of your emotions, like you take care of little children. Right. And you kind of have to spend time with it and listen to it and show compassion towards it and let it express itself. Don't judge it. It just there is a way to learn these things. I don't think you have to be born, as an emotionally savvy person. I think you can learn these things at any point in life, And I feel like in this day and age, you almost have to, because the world is just getting to a place where it affects people in so many ways. And I feel like there's such a need right now to have some kind of internal order, even if there's chaos around us that affects us emotionally.
I agree 1,000,000,000% with that message. It's a powerful one, a necessary one, that for some reason we resist to it. And we do put the responsibility on other people and the country, the world outside. But
yeah. I often wonder if it's something we should even teach, as part of like school education, because it just seems obvious that that's never been taught in school as far as I know. And yet no one ever tells us what we're supposed to do with our emotions as just preventative stuff. And I just feel like it would really save a lot of challenging things that come up as a teenager if you actually knew what to do with your feelings from the get-go. And, because it just creates you have to learn the hard way usually, and it's very painful.
Have you tried to approach the school system or expand your work to schools? That would be an interesting purpose.
It's definitely on my mind. I can't say it's been the first thing I would do. I think I have to get the book out first.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like I feel like that is
true.
That has been one of the most challenging adventures where I didn't realize what I had to do, and it's taken a lot of patience and perseverance, and I know once it's out, then all these other possibilities will start to come into play more, meaning the school option or teaching or workshops. And I feel like that's definitely on my mind. And actually, it was one of the inspirations for writing the book. I mean, there were a few inspirations, but that was definitely one of them. I feel like back, I want to say maybe 2009, 2015, that range, there were school shootings going on, and I just felt like there are so many angry teens, and I just felt like if only there was a way to reach them before they became teenagers, if there was, because it's almost too late, once they're already thinking in terms of violence. So,
yeah.
But one day.
Yeah, I love that you have that in mind. You're aware of that. That's a possibility. So you wrote the book, which it is on Amazon now, but you don't have the Kindle version yet, right, Scott?
Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
I did not know that. I actually thought we took it off the market for a little while I was editing it, and so I'm hoping to have a new edition, in the next few months. So I'm hoping that will be an even easier edition to read, because I feel like I've really gotten some great feedback on how to really simplify things so that I wouldn't lose anyone in the early chapters. So but you're right, it is available, I think, technically on Amazon right now.
I think I see, but I think there's no option to buy yet. I see something red in there. So it's unavailable for now, but it is there. So you wrote the book, 5 Steps to Tame the Overwhelmed Mind, Unclutter Your Emotional World. I guess my first question about your book really is the mind. So what is the mind to you, and how does it become overwhelmed? What makes it to fall out of balance?
Yeah. Okay. That's a great question. I certainly could have taken that approach with the mind in many different ways when I was thinking of writing the book. I recognize that, nowadays we talk a lot about neurotransmitters and regions of the brain that have to do with anxiety, and I certainly mentioned those ideas in the book. I think what I really had in mind in writing the book, though, was to take a more clinical approach about emotions, and I really felt that that I wanted to focus on 3 emotions in particular, which I thought were the foundational emotions of what gets us into trouble in our mind, and those are desire, anxiety, and fear. And the third one was hostility or frustration. And so these are the three I really focused on early on. I really felt like this was kind of like the engine that got everything started with our mind becoming overwhelmed. And what I ended up doing with those three emotions, and I realized the book, as you know, is a very visual book, and yet we're only talking, by words. So I have to kind of, ask that if a person were to look at a triangle, for instance, and put those three emotions around a triangle, there's a certain connection between those three emotions. And certainly when a child is first realizing they're separate from the world, around 18 months or so, they immediately start to recognize that they have a separation, and there's fear and desire and frustration that goes with that. So I feel like those are things that come with the package of, being a human. And so what I came to really focus on was that triangle, and how that triangle really became kind of like a way of looking at it, was that these three emotions kind of interconnected, and sometimes one led to the other. And in case of desire, sometimes the mother of anger could be unfulfilled desire, or sometimes the mother of desire is fear, fear that you're not going to get it. So it just became clear to me that this is kind of like a pattern, and so I realized I could expand the playing field from this triangle. I actually call this triangle the Bermuda Triangle. I'm sure you picked up on that in the book. And the reason why I called it the Bermuda Triangle is I realized it's kind of like a treacherous triangle to be in, and it's really hard to find your way out of, and very easy to stay stuck in almost your entire life between those three emotions. And so I kind of expanded the playing field to include other negative emotions, and I recognized that as time went on, I could see that there's a vicious cycle between these three emotions, how one led to the other. And I kind of spell that out in in the diagrams in the book. And so in step one, I talk about fear and the negative emotions. And in step two, I talk about needs and desires. I really focused on 16 needs in particular that usually led to overwhelm. And I also point out that some of these needs are not actually needs, but we call them needs because of our culture. We have a very strong need for power and control, and we think of that as a need, but it really isn't. It's really not the same as food or shelter and things like that. So I pointed that out. And then the third step is really about frustration, and how that when we get our needs unfulfilled, it leads to all other kinds of reactions. And ultimately, it reinforces the fear that we had in the first place. And so I kind of connected this into almost like a vicious cycle that self-perpetuates over time. And the totality of that whole cycle is what I call the overwhelmed mind. It's so really it's about unfulfilled needs along with the negative emotions, and it's like an electrical circuit that gets overloaded. And I realize that's, I don't have any, evidence that that's how the brain is really functioning, but I do believe this pattern works for a lot of people. And that's kind of what I based it on, my own clinical observation, that I saw that this was true for a lot of people, including myself, I might add. I could see that. So that's kind of how I framed the whole book, was around this. The whole goal of the book is how to get out of this Bermuda Triangle. How do we get out of this false self to the real self? And that is really what the book is about. And I kind of have these middle steps where I talk about the person gaining insight into their habitual thought patterns, and how they have a lot of tried and failed methods and really coping strategies that they've learned throughout life to get through life. But then I really take people towards the step of reparenting, which means not that your parents weren't good enough, but that it's your job to take care of these negative emotions. And I try to lay out in 3 pieces how you do that. And I call it the 3 C's, which is containment, connectedness, and creativity. And then I show you it's how through a series of questions and visualizations, how you can reparent yourself so that you can actually stop the bullet of the vicious cycle and kind of find your way towards the positive side and start getting into more positive emotions. It's not that you're going to do it in one swoop, but I definitely feel that it's a meditation that you could practice every day. And it could help, I think, almost anyone, when they're having a tough situation that they just can't calm themselves down. Because even if you want to meditate when you're very upset, it's really hard because you have these intrusive feelings and thoughts going through your mind, and you may as well just go with them and incorporate that in your early meditation so that you can actually get to a calmer place once you've at least not ignored these feelings. So I kind of lay out a workbook in this book that I wrote where I have exercises, and I really try to take it step by step with a lot of examples. It is a self-help book, but I do think it's for people that really want to work on something that they already started working on. And so I feel like the book is geared, I want to say, towards 3 groups in particular that I have in mind. The spiritual seeker, the person that really is on that path and they want to figure out how to get closer to the real self. It's for people that just get overwhelmed with life and have anxiety issues. And it's also for people that perhaps have a personality style where they have certain needs or expectations in life that aren't realistic. And I think this pandemic really made that clear for a lot of people, that the needs they thought they were going to be having in their life are not happening. And certainly everyone would wish or desire to have certain things happen, but it's they're not entitled to it. It really is our need to control things that is driving it, and it's not so much a need itself. And so I want people to maybe get some awareness about what needs they really need in their life, and be less selfish, perhaps, or less rigid about how they go about their life. And I feel like that's going to be happening anyway in the coming years. But I feel like this book is a good adjunct to that process.
And it is, I see, as a compassionate work. So by going through the page, I love the illustrations, the images that you have created too, everything. Yeah, it's kind of fun
to
look at them.
I found a really good illustrator. He really, the moment I met him, I knew this is my guy. And he did a great job.
We're almost at the end, and I have so many questions here for you. But let me ask you a question about the needs for power. So that's something that you mentioned just a few minutes ago. That's not really a need. So what is your idea of power? What is power to you?
So power comes in a lot of different guises. I mean, I kind of spelled that out in the book. I talked about the need for control, the need to be right, the need to have forceful opinions, the need to triumph, the need to win, the need to compete. So it's it's all of those things. But I suppose it's kind of a lot of our society is built on power. And certainly there's always we don't talk about it, but that's kind of what we're doing. We're all trying to get into our best position in life, to have control over things. And I actually think that's actually changing. The pandemic is actually changing that power structure very quickly about, how certain people have lost their power because of certain situations beyond their control. So that's kind of what I meant by power. But it's I don't. The book doesn't really talk about power in a positive way.
Right. Right.
I'm sure there is a positive aspect to it, but that's not what I focused on.
We have this idea that power has to do with manipulation, control, force. But to me, it's really inner peace. If you can free yourself from emotions, what you talk about, all these frustration, these negative ways of seeing life, and then that's power to me, if you can do that.
Yeah. Now I use the term empowerment,
Right.
funny enough.
Right.
And that's a positive. But that's only after you've really moved your way up into the positive region. Right. And that's more, I like to think that's more when you've really quieted your ego a little, and you're more in a humble position to take in empowerment, and you're not, it's not so much about what you want, but it's about maybe like a calling or a sense of something coming through you that you feel called to fulfill. And it's more of a higher calling, empowerment. So I do use that term, and I definitely feel like that's important actually to bring up.
I agree. I love that word, empowerment, right? Which is accessing our inner power to me. So it goes back to power, but in a different way. Yeah, it's not the way it is taught or has been taught. So we're almost at the end. I do have a few more questions for you, the ending questions. Would you like to add anything, Scott, or read a passage in your book?
If there's time, I would like to read a little passage in my book, because I feel like it's something that I would like people to know. And it's actually a little personal, but I feel like it's useful. So I'll go ahead and read it.
Yes, please.
This is actually in the introduction of the book, not in the version you have, but it's in the new version. Yeah. So I consider myself to have been a very sensitive child. I remember at age 5, not knowing what to do with my feelings and trying to ask my father why I was more sensitive than my 4 sisters. I do not believe he knew what I was talking about, and he was not able to give me guidance whenever it would come up. Over time, I learned to internalize my feelings and pretend to the outside world that I was doing fine. The strategy of fake it till you make it seemed to work for many years, until I completed medical school and started my psychiatry internship with the United States Navy, to whom I owed 3 years of service in exchange for their payment of my medical school tuition. For the first time in my life, I felt I was not a good fit for what was being asked of me. The internship had a high level of responsibility, including my being on call every 3 or 4 nights without much downtime on other days. I was highly sleep deprived, and this was combined with little hope for time to take proper care of myself. By the 3rd month of my internship, the physical stress had taken its toll, and I had to be hospitalized for pneumonia. Like anyone under intense stress, I had the fleeting thought of dropping out and running away abroad. But of course, I still owed the Navy 3 more years. With the help of a good therapist, I was able to slow down and eventually get adjusted to my treadmill existence. Encouraged by the knowledge that eventually my life would regain a normal pace, I could see that there was light at the end of the tunnel. However, by the time I completed my stint in the Navy and returned to the slower pace of civilian life and private practice, I had developed more somatic stress symptoms like irritable bowel issues and food allergies, and I had lost my spiritual connection. Looking back at that period of my life, it is easy to see that I was overwhelmed more days than not, engulfed in emotions and stress that I did not know how to manage. And though I ultimately found my way out of it, I wish there had been more tools available at that time. This book developed out of that wish.
Wow. Yeah, I love the way you're very open. That's being vulnerable. It shows that humility that comes from the spirit to me. That's beautiful. Thank you. So I have a few more questions for you. Yeah, I'll ask you this one. What is success to you these days, Scott?
I think it's, like I said before, it's a much simpler idea than I had originally many years ago. I think it's more just about harmony between my inner world and my outer world. And this equilibrium that sometimes feels like everything is going just the right way. And at times I have this loving awareness of things. And I think being able to serve others with that awareness or that state of mind is really success for me at this point. Because I feel like that is, that there's nothing more I could do than that as far as being a healer. I feel like that is what ultimately you have to give, is just from your heart. And so I would say that would be success at this point for me.
So 2 more questions. If you knew you would die soon, meaning losing the body, would you make any changes in your life or do anything in a different way?
Well, I probably would stop working.
Yeah, good idea.
In all fairness, I think that's probably not something I would be missing on my deathbed.
Right. Yeah. But
I do think, I do have a spiritual practice already, and I feel like that would take on more of a central role. I guess I've had the misfortune, but also the fortune of having friends who have passed recently in the last year or two. But they were very positive dying experiences. And I learned from that. I really understood that it really can be a very peaceful journey where the person has a lot of gratitude and they're really leaving on a very positive note. And so what I learned from that was they spent their days, chanting God's name. They were meditating more. They were reading sacred text. They were really staying close to God and, staying in gratitude and grace. And I think that's all I would ever want. And having the people around you that, they're kind of like your soulmates, those are the people that you want nearby. So I think it would just be about loving more and getting ready for the big journey.
I love that. That sounds like a gift, those experiences of witnessing that.
Yeah, I hadn't had any positive experiences up until recent years, so I was really pleasantly surprised.
My last question is, what are 3 things about life you know for sure as of this moment?
That I know for sure? Wow.
Yeah.
I actually don't know that much. Truth be told, you can be a seeker all you want, but the truth is there's so much to know. Maybe there really isn't anything to know, but in my head there is. And so I think I still feel like I really know very little, and maybe that's a good thing. I would say the power of love is the one thing of value in this world or universe, and I'm pretty sure that's true. And then I also believe that we can never really obtain peace in the outer world until we make peace with ourselves. And we could talk about peace in the external world till the cows come home, but until we start doing some inner work on that, it's going to elude us. Yeah. So I would say those are 3 things.
Thank you so much, Scott, for sharing what you know to be true, although you humbly say you don't know, but it really resonates true to me. And I love your presence too. It's very peaceful. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you're doing, compassionate work, and trying to help others to see the light, as we call it. Thank you so much for everything. I do have one more question for you. This is a technical one. Where can we find more information about you, your books, products, services, and future projects?
Okay, so right now it's very simple because it's all on one place, one website, and it's scottmartyrmd.com. And you actually can't buy anything at the moment. What you can do is read my articles. A lot of the articles have a lot to do with the book. In fact, I would say almost 40% of the articles have something to do with the book, and you can get a lot from the articles even before the book is released. And then I also have a wisdom library that you can sign up for, where you can access different quotes from famous people. I have like 250 people that quote on all different kinds of topics when you're overwhelmed. And so it's a good resource if you're just looking for inspiration, or with the book, it's actually going to be useful as well to have that library available.
Right. Do you have any idea when your book will be available?
So, I realize editing can go on forever.
True. Yeah.
And I am starting to, set deadlines, and I feel like I'm hoping summer it'll definitely be ready, but I don't want to give a date that's because it depends on other people doing certain things by a certain time. So I can't say that either. So
yes, please let me know so I can update the episode.
2021 for sure.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you so much again, Scott, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. It was great.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. To learn more about Scott D Martyr and his work, please visit scottmartyr.com.
To learn more about this podcast, please visit fitforjoy.org/podcast. Thank you again for listening, and bye for now.